If you find yourself cold calling to make your next sale, or to sell a nonprofit fundraiser ticket, or to simply make the quota at your kids' school bake sale, fear not. I'm here to rescue you. You see, I've been in some sort of sales type role for the last 20 years, and I have an exciting announcement to make. I haven't made a cold call in over 10 years. It gets better. You see, there's a common phrase among many business circles that states, cold calling is the punishment for those who are bad at building relationships. I find this to be true in my case, and I feel like there's a better way to get to your next sale by simply not worrying about your next sale. Jeffrey Gitmer, in his book, The Little Red Book of Selling, states, in sales, it's not who you know. In sales, it's who knows you. My argument is that building meaningful connections can do so much more for your professional growth than moving from one transactional sale to another ever will. Before I go any further, I'd like to share a personal connection story with you. 17 years ago, I was single, yet ready for commitment, but was definitely barking up the wrong trees. A good friend of mine, a reliable connection, you could say, had seen enough and devised a plan. And on a Saturday night, he invited me over for dinner with his lovely wife and his beautiful family. But I wasn't the only invite. Why did he invite me by email? Why am I not the only one named on this email? Uh-oh, this is a blind date. The rest is history. I was introduced to my now wife of 16 years, and we have a family of our own. That is a meaningful connection. While I'm not here to bash the so-called magical art of cold calling, I do want to expose you to a much better way of getting to your next sale by being a connector. According to an independent study from Cognism.com, the cold calling success rate is 4.8%. 4.8%. Not the 50 to 60% that I would have assumed based on the amount of cold calling strategies that I see on the market. Now, I'd like to claim that I'm in the 50 to 60% range, but I'm probably a 4.8er, like the study claims, when it comes to cold calling success. The good news is, I believe I've found a better way. You see, I thrive on developing centers of influence, providing value in each interaction, and equipping my customers with the tools they need for success to such an extent that they can't help but introduce me to other like-minded and similar goal-oriented individuals. And that's how it starts. I believe all it takes is that one customer that can turn into 2 customers, that can turn into 4 customers, that can turn into that goal-breaking portfolio that removes any need to cold call to make your next sale. Let me tell you how I met my biggest connection. Years ago, I worked at a bank with a friend named Mark, and we've kept in touch over the years. Mark introduced me to his wife's second cousin, Robert, who happened to be calling on a successful real estate developer. Robert introduced me to Brian. Brian introduced me to his business partner and mentor, Brandon, who happened to be uber successful in the same segment. Brandon, who happened to be in need of a connection to a commercial banker that he could count on. Conveniently, that happened to be me. 4 connections over a number of years, and here I am with a connection that sends millions worth of referrals every year to me. That is also a meaningful connection. Now let me digress for a moment and touch on the practice of networking. On the surface, it sounds very similar to what I'm talking about here. Let's say you go into an event where there's 100+ people, of which you know 2 of them. And with a stack of business cards in hand, you trudge in for an hour of torture. Okay, could be worse. But what if you find those 2 people that you're connected with and introduce them to one another? What if in turn you ask those 2 people to introduce you to 2 people they know? How many people do you know at this event now? Here's the key. Ask this question of all 6 of them. How can we help one another? Or better yet, what connections do we have here that we can help one another? Do that in the first 5 minutes and then spend the rest of the event on a mission. You're no longer there for yourself or the company that you represent. You're there as part of a team, aren't you? Now go make those connections. You see, this is just a very brief opportunity, a speck in your overall connections lifetime. And you just spent an hour of your time creating an army. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, I don't have time for connections. I have goals to hit. Don't get me wrong, goals are important. Without goals, Baskin-Robbins might only have 30 flavors of ice cream instead of 31, and my waistline would be slimmer. But what happens when you reach a goal? If you're like me, you reach it, you celebrate it, and then you set it to the side and move to the other 30 flavors that you've been working on. Instead, I encourage you to strive to make meaningful, enduring connections. Are you a meaningful connection? Here's some examples of long-standing, meaningful connections. Most lawyers I know continue to be lawyers. Most doctors I know continue to be doctors. Most IT professionals I know continue in the IT field. These are the kinds of connections that just seem to last longer. Are you on this list? Perhaps you're the florist that's been in the same shop for over 20 years. Or the contractor who knows everyone in the neighborhood. Or the mechanic who has helped multiple generations of families with their brake jobs and oil changes. These are the kinds of connections that just seem to last. Here's how you can become a person on this list I just mentioned. Be a person of value. I believe that everyone has value to offer. This comes with some conditions, however. First, as I previously mentioned, I believe everyone has some value to offer. Second, the delivery of your value might cost you more than you gain. And finally, while not every person you connect with will have a need for your value, what connections do they have that do need you? My advice to you is to make meaningful connections both in your personal life and in your business life. And don't just strive to make connections with your coworkers. Make connections with your coworkers' friends, their friends' friends, and their friends' family. And don't just strive to make connections with your primary customers. Make connections with their customers' friends, and their customers' competitors even. Yes, that's a true story. I've had a customer refer their competitor to me. These connections might involve the delivery of a product or service that you have to sell, or maybe just free advice that you have to give, or maybe even just encouragement to one of your connections when they've had a rough day. Regardless, in my experience, the effort that you give and the trust that you earn can lead to that right connection coming along that changes the entire scope of your career and might just be enough to end your cold calling journey forever. Thank you.